Test, test. Good evening. My name is Taylor Himness. I'm one of the anchors at KSHB 41 here in town, and I'm thankful to be here with you tonight. I've had the opportunity to come and be part of this ceremony for the last couple of years, and I'm thankful again that I'm able to be here with you this evening and spend some time remembering. And I'm thankful that the weather seems to be cooperating. I was afraid that it was going to be 95 degrees this afternoon. Thankfully, that's not my department. So I'm glad that it's a nice evening to sit together outside and to celebrate. Some of you have been here before and heard me tell this story, so I hope you'll forgive me for doing so again, but 9/11 has become one of those American days in which you say where you were and what you were doing. And that is what I think it sometimes feels almost either obliged to do or feels like you maybe shouldn't. People have heard me tell that story before. And I think that the way that American days in which you're supposed to say where you were stay American days in which you're supposed to say where you were, if you keep telling people where you were and keep telling a story about where you were and what happened and what you saw and what you felt and what you heard, those are how those days hold their meaning for as long as possible. I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore at Abilene Christian University in Abilene, Texas. And I watched the television coverage that morning, like we all did, like most of us did, I think. And then at my university, there was a daily chapel gathering where all the students of the student body came at 11 o'clock every weekday to sit together and take part in a worship service, sing some songs, listen to some announcements about what's going on around the school and activities and the like. Always felt pretty normal, often a thing that you might skip. I don't think a lot of people skipped that day. The auditorium was packed there in Abilene, Texas that day. And the president of the university came up, which was rare. He didn't often do that. And he came up to the podium a lot, just like this one. And I'll never, ever forget. I remember exactly where I was sitting. And he walked up to the podium and he said very simply, "Here's what we know." And started to tell a group of about 4,000 or 5,000 19 to 22-year-olds who were away from home and away from their families and were, in some cases, absolutely terrified, what we knew for certain about what we were watching on television and what we knew for certain about what had happened. Because if you remember that day, there was a lot that we didn't know and a lot of uncertainty, and that was, quite frankly, the scariest part in some cases. I remember my mother calling me because we were all afraid about what's next. What's the next places that might be hit? Where might those planes land today or crash into today? And if you remember that day, military bases became a topic of conversation. Any city with a military base or an Air Force base. Abilene, Texas has an Air Force base. And my mother was calling because she'd seen on the news that any city with a military base or an Air Force base could be the next target. And she was in tears asking me if I was okay. Those are my strong memories of that day. You're going to hear from a lot of people tonight that can tell you what it's like to be in the throes of fear and in the throes of terror when it comes to being a person whose job it is to respond to that. You're going to hear from police and firefighters and first responders to tell you what it's like when things happen. This is how I felt. This is what we did. This is what it meant to me as someone who wears a badge or a uniform. I can't do that tonight. What I can do, because of the nature of my career, is tell you the value of a story. And as I mentioned a moment ago, telling these stories to people are how these days continue. I have 3 young sons who obviously none of which were alive on that day happened, and they have heard me tell the story. And we'll hear it again tonight before we go to bed about where I was and what I was doing and how I felt and why I was scared and what I still think about that day. Storytelling is powerful, and it makes days into much more than they can and should be sometimes. And we are thankful that tonight you are here to listen to some stories, to close your eyes and think of your own, and to honor this day the best we know how. This time I want to welcome Steve Pierce, who's from Millblock Funeral Care and the co-executive director for the Catholic Cemeteries of Kansas City and St. Joseph, to welcome you tonight.
First of all, I want to thank you all for being here this evening to gather and honor and remember the lives lost on September 11th, 2001. I also want to extend a special thanks to those who helped put this event on. A special thanks to Jenny Murtis. Jenny, raise your hand. Jenny put a lot of time and effort into this, along with the staff here at the Catholic Cemeteries of Mount Olivet, who are on the other side of the road. Guys, raise your hand. Thank you for hosting us. This day reminds us of nearly 3,000 men, women, and children who never returned home, and the bravery of the first responders who rushed towards danger. We're honored to have several people with us here today. Our MC, Taylor, introduced himself. Raytown Mayor Mike McDonough, Casey Mayor Pro Tem Raina Park Shaw, the Kansas City Police Department Color Guard Rifle Volley Team and Police Chief Stacy Graves, Kansas City Fire Department Color Guard Fire Chief Ross Grundyson and Battalion Chief Tim Scheel, Police Chief Robert Kuhl, American Legion Post 189, VFW Post 5789, Deacon Mike Lewis, the Kansas City Fire Department Associate Chaplain, the Rockhurst High School Chamber Choir, led by Dr. Kevin Coker, Charlie Passantino, Councilman Darrell Curls, Barbara Jenkins, whose sister Denise Conley lost her life on 9/11 at the Twin Towers, who's here with us again. Thank you for being here. We also have the Catholic War Veterans, Marine Corps League Simpson Hoggett Detachment 984. Thank you all again for being here, and thank you those who are participating. And it's now my privilege again to introduce Taylor Himness, who will open our program.
At this time, if you'd stand as our color guards are led in. John Toot will be performing on bagpipes tonight. The four color guards we have taking part this evening are the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department, American Legion Post 189, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 5789. Thank you for standing. When you came in, you likely noticed the well-dressed young men in the back. This is the Rockhurst High School Chamber Singers, led by Dr. Kevin Coker. They're singing our national anthem tonight. As I've said in years past, and I just mentioned the people that are alive today that were not alive when this day happened, I am thankful for a group of young men who are learning themselves from other people's stories what this day means, and are still willing to be here to take part in this ceremony. Fellas, thank you.
Present. Present. On.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Gentlemen, Dr. Coker, thank you for being here tonight. That was beautiful. Thank you very, very much. Now I'd like to welcome David Baker from American Legion Post 189, who will lead our Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Everybody, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you'll remain standing for Deacon Mike Lewis, KCFD chaplain, who will lead our invocation this evening.
We remember, God of history and remembrance, we remember. We remember when the towers fell and the lives were lost. We remember the dust and the smoke, the despair and the grief. We remember the sense of vulnerability and shock. Remember the numbness that overwhelmed us as we watched on our screens hours and hours, waiting for an explanation, understanding it never came. We remember. We remember, God of hope and God of peace. We remember the heroes who rushed to help, who guided the wounded down innumerable flights of stairs, who rose to overwhelm those who held death in their hands. Remember the hours and the days of binding wounds and healing hurts, giving comfort and drying tears. We remember words of support and compassion from all nations far and wide. We remember. We now call on you in our remembrance, God of justice and of peace. Give us the will to truly pray that your kingdom of peace and justice may come to this earth. Amen.
You may be seated. Thank you so much for standing. As I mentioned when I welcome you tonight, we are going to hear next from a couple of people who have unique perspectives. And I think that those of us that were alive on that day, we should count ourselves lucky if all that we had to do was react and call our families and ask the people around us if they were okay. That's all that we had to do in that moment. But there were thousands of people across the country, men and women, who had to do a lot more than that because of the badges that they wear and the careers they chose. And I'd ask that you to keep that in mind as our next speakers come up and offer their perspectives on this day of the people who were not allowed to simply watch in shock and awe and horror, but had to respond in the ways that they best saw fit and were commanded to in those days. So I want to start by introducing Kansas City Police Chief Stacey Graves.
Good evening. First, I just want to recognize the young men that just gave that wonderful performance. I just want to give you one more hand of applause. That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being here on a Thursday evening to remember, just like all of us here. Never forget September 11th. Never forget all those who lost their lives, all of the everyday heroes that helped one another in one of the most horrific days in America. Never forget all the heroes on September 11th, not just first responders. Heroes trapped in buildings who did everything they could to help one another. Strangers. Heroes on a flight that fought back to ensure the plane they were on was not used to weaponize an attack on other Americans. Never forget the members of the military who in the years following left home to fight the war on terror to protect our country, and at times never coming back. Never forget. Never forget September 11, 2001, 24 years ago today. Not the cowardly acts by terrorists, but all the everyday heroes who responded in the moment of sheer terror. There were so many, thousands of people who lost their lives that day, and some by choice. America's first responders and helpers saw a burning building, people needing rescuing, and they went in. They ran in, without regard for their own safety, to save others. And after 9/11, America's first responders were still here, and we still stand ready to seek and to save. They wake up every day and choose to serve, knowing it's at their own personal risk. At times they're even woken up in the night and called in to serve. You see, the selflessness and courage you saw that day, they're still here. They're still in the hearts of our officers, our first responders, our fire department, our police department. Never forget how we all came together after September 11th. I had the opportunity of meeting two presidents this past weekend, and one of which, as soon as I saw him in person, it took me right back to 9/11, and that was George Bush. That was the first thing I thought when I saw his face. It brought me right back. The way he rallied everyone, the way we were all indivisible at that time. The American spirit during that time truly showed up, and we were indivisible. We proudly hung our American flags. We were all collectively proud of who we are as a country, as one people, all seeing a commonality in one another. We were one nation under God. We were indivisible. I spoke about this before in a previous ceremony right here, and I'm saying it again. We need that back. The togetherness. And it shouldn't take a tragedy on American soil to realize that again, that we are better together. Never forget today, tomorrow, and the next day, and so on. Remember the lives we lost and the heroes who responded. Never forget how it felt to be indivisible on September 11th, 2001, because I believe many of us have. We are separated by single issues, politics, viewpoints, experiences, all the differences that we used to celebrate as Americans in our North American melting pot. These differences were once respected, and at times they're used to divide us. Never forget that you share more in common with strangers you live amongst in this country. We need to treat each other as humans again, all with beating hearts, not by divided into parties or viewpoints. Stop dividing yourselves for one reason or issue. Let politics live at the polls. Show compassion for one another. Speak life to strangers, and speak life to those that you know well. Make peace with those you don't agree with, because I guarantee it, there are more things you can agree about and have in common. Never forget, we are Americans, one people, and we are better together, one nation, under God, and we can be indivisible. We can be indivisible again. May God bless you and keep you and our country.
Thank you, Chief Graves. Now please welcome to the podium Kansas City Fire Chief Ross Grundison.
On September 11th, 2001, our nation and the fire service were changed forever when 19 hijackers took the lives of 2,977 people in the deadliest terrorist attack in history. When the Twin Towers collapsed, along with the civilians, police officers, EMTs, and paramedics, and 343 members of FDNY lost their lives while trying to save those trapped inside and above the burning inferno some 80 floors above the street. This tragedy devastated our nation and the world, sending shockwaves of grief and despair throughout the fire service. 3 days later, President Bush stood on the pile of rubble and debris that was once the Twin Towers and said, "Never forget." That is why we are here today, to honor that promise made 24 years ago. There is no greater honor than to give one's life in service for another. As firefighters and first responders, we understand the risks and the dangers that come with the profession that we have chosen. We accept those risks, we embrace them, and when others are running from danger, we forge ahead. Not because we are fearless, but because we are able to push ahead in spite of the fear, hoping to find one more person, one more mother, one more father, one more child, and bring them to safety. There are dozens of eyewitness accounts from the civilians at the Twin Towers that day who passed firefighters in the stairwell as they made their way out of the building. They recall firefighters in full turnout gear, carrying loads of additional gear and equipment, climbing flight after flight of stairs, not with looks of fear or despair on their faces, but with the look of sheer determination. Determination to make it to the victims who so desperately needed them some 80 floors above. Even after the first tower collapsed and orders were given to evacuate, these brave souls, these dedicated public servants, refused to retreat. Knowing that they themselves may die, they refused to leave without trying to save all that they could. They took an oath when they joined the fire service, and they died honoring that oath. They were and are the true definition of a firefighter. So today we come together to honor these brave souls and to honor the promise to never forget. To never forget the sacrifices that they each made in the service of others. To honor them by continuing the great traditions of the fire service. We pray for their souls and we pray for their loved ones they left behind. May God bless them and watch over them, and may we as a nation never forget.
I wonder this evening if it strikes you like it strikes me. One of the unfortunate truths of tragic days when they happen, and remembrances like this when we are talking about tragic days, is that is one of the only moments where people like Chief Graves and Chief Grundison will get up and talk about themselves or the people that wear the badge. That doesn't happen very often. They are expected in many cases to quietly do their job of life-saving work. heroic work all the time. It occurred to me as I sat and listened this evening, we just had, in the last month or so, 2 law enforcement officers killed in the Kansas City area, both in Wyandotte County. And in those moments, in those funerals, we heard from chiefs and other firefighters and other police officers and sheriff's deputies getting up and talking about the work that is done. I hope that we can, as people, be more aware of that work without needing the tragedy to see it. Chief Graves mentioned that a moment ago, but I am thankful for these moments, as difficult as they are in some cases, in which people like Chief Graves and Chief Grundison have a moment to tell us who they are and what they're doing, and we get to think about how grateful we should be that they're there. At this time, I want to introduce Raytown Mayor Mike McDonough to the podium, please.
Good evening. Gentlemen, beautiful song. Sometime when you're up to it and you like to read about history, read all about that song. That song will take on a whole new meaning for you at your age. Just try it sometime. It's amazing. We gather here today in a sacred place, as we have for years. We're here to remember. More than that, we're here together to honor. To honor the souls lost, the families shattered, the heroes who emerged from the ashes of that terrible day. For some of us, the memories are as clear as yesterday, the blue sky, the sudden impossible images on our screens, the sickening lurch in our stomachs as our world shifted hugely. For others, it's a story passed down, a history etched into the hearts of our parents and our grandparents. Before I was mayor, I was a police officer for 40 years. I was getting dressed that morning to go to duty as sergeant in the detective unit while I was watching that happen. At first, I thought, boy, what a dumb pilot that was to fly into a building like that. And they were talking about it being a small plane. And I thought, oh my gosh, I hope it didn't injure too many people. Then the second one came along, and that's when we all immediately knew that we were under attack. It was the most horrendous event, and I've seen a lot of them in my time, that I can't ever shake it from my memory. They hit the Twin Towers, and then the third plane crashed into the Pentagon, and the fourth plane was brought down by brave passengers at a field in Pennsylvania who fought the terrorists that had hijacked that. That's the kind of bravery that these people have all been talking about, and I'm talking about. People that will rush in to save others. People who will run into fire, run into gunfire to save other people that they don't even know. But regardless of our age of our memory, the gravity of this day is universal. It is a day to feel the ache of a void left behind, for some of us here in the crowd especially. Of a loved one who will never come home, a colleague who left, no longer echoes in the hallway, and a child who grew up with only stories of their mother or father. The grief of 9/11 belongs not just to those who were there, but to all of us who understand the profound fragility of life and the immense love that connects us. We stand silently in tribute to the lives taken, nearly 3,000. We say their names, and we hold their faces in our minds. We remember the firefighters, the police officers, the emergency workers who ran toward the fire while others fled, a testament to the courage in the face of impossible darkness. We remember every person, the office workers, the pilots, the tourists, whose lives were a mosaic of dreams, plans, and moments of joy, all stolen by evil. We honor all the first responders along with all the other people, including so many that have passed away from the inhalation of the smoke and the ashes and those kind of things. More have died since then than died in that day when that happened. We pay tribute to the resilience of the American people who came together in the face of tragedy. In the years since 9/11, our nation has faced many challenges, but we have always remained strong and united. We have learned that even in the darkest times there is hope, and we have learned that the human spirit is capable of incredible things, especially the American spirit. Importantly, we are all Americans, brothers and sisters, the great experiment of a constitutional republic, one country, ever evolving, striving for all of us to be free. I say tonight, let us revive that patriotism we felt then and in the years following, and remember how in that adversity we came together as Americans, one nation under our Creator with liberty and justice for all as our goal. My message here is, let's not let evil win. The things that have happened in recent days just add to the agony of what happened on 9/11. But as some of these folks have said, we rose above that, we came together, we were all patriots, we were all Americans, and we all were proud to be Americans. So I say to you, let us continue to tell the stories about these brave people. Let us continue to honor their memory by living lives full of purpose, compassion, and love. Let us remember that while evil may strike, it can never extinguish the spirit of a people determined to rise, rebuild, and remember. May we find strength in our shared sorrow and hope in the promise that they will never, ever be forgotten. May God bless our military personnel, most current and our wonderful veterans, our first responders, all. May St. Michael be with you and God, and keep you safe and tend to your duties while you're tending to your duties. And may God continue to bless these great United States of America. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Now I'd like to introduce John Williams, who's the commander of American Legion Post 189, to offer some thoughts tonight.
Thank you, Taylor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and students of our fine Rockers. We come together today to pause, reflect, and to pay tribute to the never-ending commitment and sacrifices of our beloved heroes who protect us every day of our lives, and all those who have lost their lives or had their lives dramatically altered by the consequences of these tragic events on September 11th. All the members of the military community, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen, standing the post around the globe to protect our families and our interests. All the members of the first responder community, doctors, nurses, firefighters, fire rescue, EMTs, and paramedics. All the members of our law enforcement community, city and county police officers, highway patrol officers, sheriff's deputies, Customs and Border Patrol, and Department of Homeland Security. All men and women on duty 24 hours per day, standing the post so that when we lay our heads down on the pillow at the end of the day, we are comforted in knowing that we are safe, we are secure. We are truly blessed to be American living in this great country. I have a short prayer. This is called the Fireman's Prayer. This is in every firehouse in the country. I will quote, "When I am called to duty, God, whenever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me to embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fulfill my calling and give the best in me to guard my every neighbor and protect their property. And if, according to your will, I am to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife. For God and country we serve. Amen."
Now I'd like to introduce or welcome several people up as we have a moment where we come to the ceremony where we're going to be laying wreaths tonight. Doing so tonight will be KCPD Chief Stacy Graves, KCFD Chief Ross Grundison, Tom Tanner, who's the commander of the American Legion 5th District, Don Harris, who's the commander of VFW 5th District, and Raytown Police Chief Bob Cool. Welcome them as they lay the wreaths tonight. Thank you all. As you all know, it's been 24 years, and in those 24 years' time, there have been quite literally thousands, likely more, moments of silence. And all of those added up cannot give the proper gravity and respect to those who've lost lives, to the actions that were taken that day to save lives. Those moments of silence all added up are only so much. But even with that recognition, we want to add to those moments tonight with our own. And I'd ask you to join me for just a few seconds. Keep someone or some image, some family, some thought in your mind as we remember 9/11, 2001. Thank you. Now we've come to the fire volley salute portion of tonight's ceremony, and doing so tonight for us is members of the Kansas City Police Department and the American Legion Post 189.
Boom. Freeze. And ready. Boom. Hey. Stop. Ready. Hey. Stop. Ready. Hey. Stop.
And now I'd like to introduce Battalion Chief Tim Shield from the Kansas City Fire Department for the tolling of the bell this evening that you've likely noticed over here to my right.
The bell ceremony is reserved for those that have made the ultimate sacrifice and given their lives in their line of duty. I'll read an explanation of the bell ceremony. In the past, as firefighters began their tour of duty, it was the bell that signaled the beginning of that day's shift. Throughout the day and night, each alarm was sounded by a bell, which summoned these brave souls to fight fires and place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizen. And when the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was the bell that signaled to all the completion of that call. When a firefighter had died in the line of duty, paying the supreme sacrifice, is the mournful tale of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade passing. We utilize these traditions as symbols, which reflect honor and respect on those who have given so much and who have served so well. To symbolize the devotion that these brave souls had for their duty, a special signal of 3 rings, 3 times each, represents the end of our comrades' duties and that they will be returning to quarters. And so, to those who have selflessly given their lives for the good of their fellow man, their task completed, their duties well done, to our comrades, their last alarm, they have gone home.
I hope that it's not lost on you. It's certainly not lost on me. The difference there between moments of silence that we offer during this ceremony and then moments of very specific sounds that we offer during this ceremony. And it is our hope that you will take any or all of those with you as you leave tonight and be impacted by any or all of those as you see fit. Our final very specific sound for you tonight is Tom Mahan, who will play taps for us as a member of the American Legion Band. You can be seated. Thank you for standing. Our last speaker tonight is Charlie Passantino, who's the owner of Passantino Brothers Funeral Home and the co-executive director of the Catholic Cemeteries of Kansas City and St. Joseph. Please give him your attention as well. Charlie?
Ladies and gentlemen, again, want to thank each of you for being here with us. I see a lot of familiar faces that have been here every year since we started this. Going at the end after all these wonderful speakers, sometimes it's hard for me to come up with something to say. Everyone's been thanked. But I want to point out one person tonight that has been with us since day one, and without her, we wouldn't be able to have this ceremony. A lot of pieces to go together for this, but Jenny Murtis. Jenny, why don't you come where everybody can see you? Jenny takes all these pieces. She puts them together every year for us, and Steve Pierce and I just kind of show up, and everything's in place. So Jenny, thank you very much. I'm going to go a little bit off script here. October the 12th, 2015. In the old Northeast area where I was grown up and raised and where I still have my funeral home, there was a fire that ended up being declared arson that took 2 of our neighborhood young men, 2 young Italian-American firefighters. One happened to be a cousin of mine, Larry Leggio, and another neighborhood young man, John Mesh. Well, October 12th, it will be a 10-year anniversary of that tragedy. Missy Leggio, Larry's wife, has been with us here since day one. She supported everything we do here at the cemetery. I'm going to ask Missy to please come forward and say a few words for us.
I'm not as good as all these wonderful people behind me giving speeches or saying their feelings on a microphone. I'm just going to read what I wrote last night after Charlie asked me to do this. Today we pause to remember one of the darkest days in our nation's history. September 11th, 2001. A day that started like any other, but ended with heartbreak, loss, and a scar on our nation that will never fade. Nearly 3,000 innocent lives were taken that day. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, gone in an instant. And among those we lost were brave first responders who rushed toward danger with no thought of themselves. Firefighters climbing stairwells to reach strangers they would never meet. Police officers running into chaos to bring others to safety. EMTs and paramedics working through smoke and rubble, giving everything they had until they could give no more. They knew the risks, they knew what they were facing, and still they went. That kind of courage is not something we can ever fully put into words. It can only be honored. And that's why we're here today, to honor, to remember, and as we've all said, never forget. But remembrance can't stop at 9/11 alone. Because the truth is, first responders around the world continue to make the same sacrifices every single day. Their courage is not bound to a single day in history. It is lived out in firehouses, police stations, EMS bays, across every community. Sometimes their service takes them into towering flames. Sometimes it takes them into violent storms. Sometimes into dangerous calls where the outcome is uncertain. And other times, it is in training, preparing themselves to be better and protect and save lives. And we know tragically that not all of them come home. For me, this truth is deeply personal. On October 12th, 2015, just shy of 10 years, a decade, my husband, firefighter Larry Leggio of Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department, was tragically killed by a single person's greed-driven act. Larry was the kind of firefighter who gave everything to his community and everything to the people he loved. He was also deeply passionate about honoring 9/11. He often reminded others how important it was to never forget. Never forget the lives lost that day and the sacrifices that people made. When Larry died, my world shattered. But what has carried me forward is knowing that his name, his sacrifice, and his light will never be forgotten. And since his passing, we've lost even more first responders, so many that I've lost count. Each one is a reminder of just how fragile life is and just how powerful the calling to serve truly is. And that is why we must always remember this. does not matter how a first responder passes in the line of service, whether tragedy like 9/11, in a fire during a call, or in training, every single one of those lives matters. Every sacrifice is sacred. Every name deserves to be remembered. Because when someone puts on that uniform, they are making a silent promise to protect others, even if it costs them their own life. That promise is as noble as it is heartbreaking. And it is one we as a community, as a nation, must always honor. So today we remember 9/11. Let us not only honor those who perished that tragic day, let us honor every first responder who has laid down their life in service since. Let us carry their names, their stories, and their courage forward. And let us renew our promise to never forget your sister. Not just the events of 9/11, but the lives of every man and woman who has given everything in the line of duty, including Larry and so many others. May we remember, may we always honor, and may we always be grateful. That's all I got.
Ms. Leggio, thank you so much for that. Thank you. That concludes tonight's ceremonies, and I don't really have anything else to say after something like that. There's nothing that I could offer that is a better perspective than that. So I just want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for every thought that you have given to this day today, that you will give in the hours between now and when you go to bed. And it doesn't have to stop just because tomorrow is 9/12. Keep that in mind. Thank you all for being here. I will ask you to stand one more time for the color guard dismissal as John Tootle plays on bagpipes to close this ceremony. But thank you again for being here tonight. God bless you. Thank you all again for coming. Have a good evening.